All right, guys. So this morning I actually want to talk about nutrition today. So I want to talk about fad diets, okay? So a lot of times people are like, oh man, don't do those fad diets. They're not sustainable, okay? And then people will be like, yeah, okay, let's, fad diets are not sustainable. I'm just gonna, everything in moderation, okay? So I've gone through a lot of diets, and the one thing that people need to understand before they put a title to something is that they need to understand that there's a reasoning behind fad diets, okay? So if you don't understand the principles and the science behind it, then we can't determine if the diet is valuable. So like for instance, and sometimes diets don't need to be sustainable, right? A diet is a strategy towards nutrition. Okay, it's not a fad diet if you understand exactly how and when to use it. For instance, okay, there's all different kinds of diets. So if you want to put on mass, there's a way to eat, and it doesn't need to be sustainable because at one point maybe you put on enough mass, you want to start cutting, right? So you're going to change your diet, okay, and there's so many strategies. Even endurance athletes have strategies. They have carb loading, right? And it doesn't need to be sustainable. They would do carb loading before their event. So, like they're not gonna be doing that all the time, but they will be doing that event maybe the next day or whatever. So there's different strategies. And if you understand the principles behind the fad diets, you'll realize that each one of these diets have a specific strategy, and it doesn't need to be sustainable. It's supposed to get a result of whatever it is that you need to get done. Okay, so I've gone through lots of diets. Okay, so I've started roughly 8 years ago with all this dieting and stuff. So my first diet that I chose was like 8 years ago. I did a fitness competition. I had no idea where to start, and I'm just gonna talk about it just so that we can understand that there really is no fad diet as opposed to a strategy for eating. Okay, so let's just start with the low GI diet. That's actually where I started, because for the majority of the time, most people are doing the low GI diet. It's a mainstream diet. That's what people are doing when they don't really have an idea of what to do, because that's what is put out there. And it's nothing wrong with it for general health maintenance. That's very good. And in fact, it got me my first physique 8 years ago. Okay, so I was an unfit guy. I used to smoke. I used to drink. I was skinny fat, and yeah. So the first thing I did was the low GI diet. So I'm gonna go behind and talk about this fad diet and give a little bit of the science, how it works. But when you're looking at diets, there's several things that you want to look at, which is how it regulates insulin, leptin, and ghrelin. Okay, so these are the three hormones that actually regulate your satiety, your hunger, and the release of fats in your body, right? How effective your body actually releases fats versus holding fats. Okay. So when I first started the low GI diet, I had no idea what to do. So that's where I started, right? Before that, I just did what I knew, which was exercise more. So I just worked out more and more. And I was getting the results, but I just wanted, I did my first competition in fitness, and I was getting the results. I was just getting, just from working out, but I had to work out so much. And then when I started adding the diet and started cleaning up the diet, I realized, man, I'm getting results by cleaning up my diet, working out less, and actually eating more. Okay, so there's a reason why these strategies work. I mean, you can always work harder, but that's a very slow, arduous process that you will have to go through, right? And this is why fad diets, implementing strategies when they're required, actually will help you out. Okay, so when you're looking at a low GI diet, what is that? Okay, so low GI diet is really switching your white rice to brown rice, your white bread to whole grain bread, stuff like that. So that's actually where I started, and that's very mainstream, and that actually gets a lot of results. And let me go to explain why. Okay, so when you're eating whole grains, it actually breaks down slower in your body. So that's the whole idea of the low GI diet, is that it breaks down slower. So what? It breaks down slower. Okay, so what happens is when you eat something like white white rice or white bread or sugar, processed sugar, there's a big spike in your insulin. So now insulin regulates your fat release, okay? So when you're eating whole grains and it breaks down slower, it causes a smaller insulin response, which means you'll be releasing more fats, because if there's a spike, your body will not release fats. Okay, it's dealing with the insulin spike, trying to re-regulate your blood sugar, right? So when you're on a low GI diet, you're gonna get a little spike, so it's gonna maintain a smooth level of energy, and then your body's better able to release fats, okay? So now that we understand that this fad diet, low GI diet, a fad diet, once you put a name to something, it's suddenly a fad diet if you don't know the science behind it, okay? So that's the whole concept of the low GI diet, is that you lower your insulin spike, okay? So low GI, the very word of low GI in diet means how long. So a high glycemic index food will break down really fast. A low glycemic index food will break down very slow, okay? So you want to choose foods that are low glycemic index. So that's the whole concept of the low GI diet. So this is just actually the basis. This is actually where I started, but I've expanded beyond this. And low GI is very good for general health. The issue with low GI though is because there's still the small insulin spike, you need to work out to make it work. So when I first started, I was working out really hard, right? And then I was getting a little bit of results. I added this low GI diet to the package, and I was working. I didn't require to work out as much, and was getting better results eating more. Okay, so yeah, understanding how diets work is so crucial to getting results. Okay, lost my train of thought. All right, but the important thing is, I'm gonna stop looking at things as fad diets and looking at why they work. Okay, so I've never tried, for instance, I've never tried the Mediterranean diet, but I'll look at what they're eating, and instead of saying, oh yeah, you gotta eat this, this, and this, and drink this, this, and this, and this, and say, oh, that's a fad, I'll say, why are they eating this? Why are they drinking this? And what is the response in the body? Does that strategy work? And why does it work? Is it similar to something else that I've tried? So there is no fad diet. There's a method and strategy that works for an individual. Okay, so and if you actually understand nutrition, you'll look at all the diets and realize the properties that make it work are similar across all of them. So when it comes down to it, the ones that are working successfully are causing a lower insulin response and helping out regulating the hormones with satiety and hunger, right? And the variations of what you're eating in terms of carbohydrates and proteins and fats are quite similar across the board. So, but if you're thinking about, because right now, transition from low GI into more, I guess, advanced, but I'm not going to talk about that today, but you'll look at them across the board and realize that they all have similar things, but based on what you want to do, they all provide different results. So whether you want to put on mass, like for instance, with bodybuilding, actually, they have lots of strategies, right? And they don't need to be sustainable, right? As long as because sometimes in bodybuilding, you're going to want to put on mass. And then, on other times, you're going to want to just get shredded, right? And the whole strategy changes. So it doesn't need to be sustainable. It just needs to, get the desired results that you need. So in bodybuilding, we don't call it fad diets. We just call it a way of eating, right? And you can label it whatever you want, carb backloading, or carb loading for an endurance athlete. You can call it whatever you want, but we don't think of it as fads. We just think of it as strategies. Okay, so carb tapering, right? When do you carb taper? We don't say, oh, I'm gonna carb taper for the rest of my life. We say, okay, I'm close to competition. What am I gonna do? I'm still gonna start slowly transitioning, cutting out carbs, right? As an example, right? So we need to stop labeling things and calling it fad diets. We need to look at how it works and what kind of results we need to get, and then start eating in the manner of the results that we want. So by saying, oh, don't ever do fad diets, you've just eliminated every single strategy that could possibly help you out. Okay, so start looking at the science behind it. And I'm leaving off with the low GI. I'll talk about another diet next time. So I've done a few, you know, I've done like immersely done a few, not dabbled in it. So low GI is where I started, and it was pretty much my you know, my holy grail when I first started was low GI diet. And I found that with each stage there was a new holy grail, and then until you get one that explodes and it kind of kills the other one, or adds to the other one, I should say, and it just enhances it all. And eventually, when you understand how all of this works, all this stuff actually becomes very simple. Okay, so anyways, I'll leave it with that. Been yammering for a while, so there you go, guys. Low GI diet for today. If you guys want to start that way, just giving you as an example, but low GI diet is all about eating things that break down slowly in your body. It's very easy to do. The reason I say that is because if you still want to have a hamburger, you can. You just got to change your white buns to your multigrain bun, right? Same thing with bread. You want to have pasta, you can. You change it from just plain pasta to multigrain or a vegetable-based pasta. You know, because I know there's like spinach, you know, pasta shells and stuff like that, whatever. But anyways, that's where I started, and that's a good place to start, just to slow down your insulin spikes. And it's very easy because you're only making switches to what you're already doing, right? You can still eat a burger, right? And if you want, go on Google and look up low GI, so low glycemic index, and see like what's on the list of what you can eat. And you're just making exchanges, okay? From something that has no fiber. Oh yeah, and increasing fiber is huge because that automatically increases automatically lowers the GI index. Okay, so low GI for today, and I'll talk about the other diets that I've done next time. All right, see you later, guys.